Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
Well, I've had better weeks.
Well,
Uh,
welcome back.
I thank you. I've been pretty lucky in my life. I've only had I've had I had knee surgery for a meniscus tear in 2002, and the other knee for meniscus tear in 2005. And this is so this is the first surgery I've had since then, and it's yeah, it's things could be more pleasant, but I'm going to try and do as much work as I can. So
Good.
as I while I heal up. Anyway, so I really wanted to talk to you about the Doug McMillon presentation to the Consumer Electronics Show, which was, I thought, remarkable on all sorts of levels. I'm gonna put a link to it below so people can watch it for themselves, and I think you and I would both recommend that they do that.
Absolutely.
Um, it was so interesting, both in terms of content and the way it was in context, the way which it was presented. Um, I mean, not least of which is, I mean, Doug McMillon is, there's a lot of people on that stage with him as he brings people in and out. He is the only white male on that stage. And, I can remember a day when, which is maybe not the most important message, but it is an important message. I can remember the times when, Walmart would send people out to do presentations, and it seemed like not only were they all wearing suits they bought in the same place, they all had their hair cut in the same place. And this was a very clear message on all sorts of levels that Walmart is a very different company that used to be, and is setting the bar for retail in lots of different ways.
I totally agree. I think the theme was this is not the quite the right words, but it's a people-led organization, right? And tech supports the people serving the customers. And I think that came through really loud and clear in the presentation. And what I really appreciated is, you could definitely see into Doug's leadership style in that as well, and that he clearly had a commanding lead of the presentation, but it was all about the people. It was all about his people and what they do to support the company, what they do to support these emerging capabilities, telling the stories about why they have this capability, talking about it, putting it in the context of how they serve their customer. Just the handoffs between he and the other presenters, were really good. The fist bumping and high fiving, and was really, really well done. And yeah, and a very clear message that, Walmart is getting pretty nicely out in front as far as tech goes. And
Yeah.
and it's really, really, really relevant.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure it would be entirely fair to say that they are completely leapfrogging Amazon, but there are things that they are ahead of. I mean, drones is a big example. He talks
Oh yeah.
a lot about drones. They have clearly leapfrogged Amazon on that. But to me, so much of the message to that CES audience was, if you have hot tech, bring it to us because we're interested. And B, we're hiring. And if you want to work for a tech forward but people oriented company, you don't have to work in Silicon Valley. You don't have to work in San Francisco. You don't have to work in Seattle. You can have a much lower cost of living and make a lot of money working in Arkansas.
Absolutely. And the other element there too is, this week we heard that they're closing Store 8, which was their innovation lab, which I think it shows you that this kind of spirit of innovation just exists within the organization now. It doesn't have to be in this separate outpost, to do this, that it can be a main part of the company and how they go to market.
Yeah, it's interesting. The one of the things, and I really wanted to talk to you about this because they made a big deal about it during the presentation, was their focus on replenishment, automatic replenishment. Clearly something you know a lot about, both for your work, with Replenium, before that with Subscribe and Save at Amazon. And there were a couple of things that were interesting. I mean, first of all, that they put so much emphasis on automatic replenishment. In some ways, as somebody who's in that space, you had to feel like this is proof of concept, right? Amazon's obviously doing it. If Walmart's doing it, it's a reason that so many other companies should be doing it.
Yeah, well, I think, and I think in a truly consumer-centric retailer like we were at Amazon, at Amazon, we figured out a way to enable tech to help customers in ways that they hadn't been helped before. Subscribe and Save was the very first product subscription that there was, which is crazy. And then you think about now with AI and other advanced tech capabilities, the fact that you can actually automate a lot of the tasks of routine shopping. They've figured out, and now we've done a fair amount of work with them too. They figured out, that it's a really important way that they can help improve their customers' lives in taking that, the labor and the process of routine shopping and letting the tech do it. The next wave of AI, like our current wave of AI, is really good at, using language, producing suggestions, publishing things, right? Really good at that. Well, that's going to continue to evolve. The next generation of AI is doing things. And this is a great example of that. And I think, they recognized a customer pain point and they said, let's go apply this capability to it. And, we think we can really help our customers and sell a lot more product.
Yeah, I don't think anybody on stage actually used the word friction, but everything they were talking about was about eliminating friction.
Absolutely.
At every stage of the shopping experience. One thing was interesting, and I want you to explain this because it's a differentiation that maybe not everybody gets. Mm-hmm. But they talked very specifically about the fact that auto replenishment and subscription are not the same thing. Explain that.
Yeah, there are a bunch of elements of the two that are the same, right? So it's not like it's completely different, but the core difference is traditional subscription works really well for stuff where you have, regular, you have predictable consumption, right? And you can replenish that consumption, at intervals that are reasonably spaced apart, right? So at least a couple of weeks, but usually a month or 2 months, apart. And the way the core technology is architected is to help the automation of those individual products coming to you in your home. Now, you may have a bunch of those together in the same shipment, right? But those come together in the shipment because their subscription rates are falling at around the same time. Auto replenishment is more around the concept of entire trips and baskets, right? So think, where a traditional subscription order might have 3 to 5 items in it, or maybe 8 or 10 items for a power subscriber like you. An auto replen order will have 25 or 30 items in it because that's my regular shop. Right. And in that, you're bringing together things that are consumed, every week, like produce, every couple of weeks, like yogurt, every month, like box of cereal, and then maybe every 3 months, like aluminum foil.
Okay.
And so you've got all of these items around your house, that all have these different consumption cycles and different replenishment cycles, kind of all coming together to form these baskets and taking care of the shopping trip for you. So it's automatically replenishing large swaths of product for you. Well, you have visibility and control over that, so it's not like it's blindly showing up and you never, you don't know what's coming, but it takes that task of the routine shopping for that stuff, off you as the customer, and you can do your entire, shop in a matter of, seconds to a minute, versus many minutes to an hour.
So is it fair to say that Subscribe and Save is a subscription service, but Replenium is more of an auto replenishment system?
For sure, absolutely, okay. Yeah.
So auto replenishment is actually the next iteration of subscription.
It is the next iteration of subscription. It's like a power subscription. It's a subscription on everything, okay. Kind of happening at the same time. But imagine as a customer, if you had to individually manage your subscription to a tomato, and then you also had to go then manage your subscription to butter, and then your subscription to yogurt, and then your subscription to cereal, and your subscription to cheese, and your subscription, that would be way too much for you to have to manage. Whereas auto replenishment says, here's all the stuff that you're going to need this week. Oh, and by the way, here's the stuff you're going to need next week. and we can already tell, here's the stuff you're going to need 6 months out. But we know that then that comes together to form an order for you of many disparate products to take that task away from you versus the individual line items of managing a subscription.
So one of the things that they talk about in their auto replenishment program is that they're making it, first of all, at least for the time being, you have to be part of Walmart Plus to have it, which makes sense. But they're also creating it as a component of their in-home delivery system. In other words, to get automatic replenishment, you have to have signed up for the service that allows their people to come into your home, put products away in your refrigerator, in your freezer, in your cupboard. Why would they? I mean, that to me, that's a bridge too far for me. My joke is always, I don't like Mrs. Content Guy moving things around the refrigerator, much
Who
less
moved my cheese?
Walmart, right? And so I'm a little anal about that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the question is, but why would they make that a component of it at this point? And can we expect that that's just a temporary requirement?
I think it's most certainly temporary. My guess is, it's a new, and by the way, it's not even out yet. It's only an announcement, right? It's not released yet. It's going to release sometime this year. My guess is they've had to pick a customer segment, a relatively defined, reasonably tight customer segment that they could pilot it through. And that's a great group to pilot it through. Particularly those customers they're probably some of your very most loyal.
Right.
So what a great group to kind of give this benefit to first, to try it out. And also just having it in that service too. If there's rough edges around getting the order right, they can kind of, while they're in the home, they can make real-time adjustments a little bit easier, than they could, if it was strictly a pickup or delivery. So my guess though is it's short term. They would never. I can't imagine they'd keep it restricted to that.
Well, and it's interesting. What you say is sort of like they're doing. I'm not sure if the word is demographically what they're doing with drones geographically, right? I mean, right now it's drones over Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right? But it's not. And their plan is to roll it out. So your suspicion is that they're going to roll it out. They'll roll this out and make it more available going down the road. Another thing they talked a lot about was the whole notion of checkout free shopping, right? Using scan and go, right? You scan things as you put them into your cart. But in their case, I think you're using your smartphone. It's not like it's built into the cart like it is in some of the Amazon stores or the Instacart Smart Cart.
Yep.
And then you go through an archway and you don't have to check out.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, some of that seems like it's not technology that's particularly new. Although Walmart has the ability, and they're only doing it in Sam's Club at this point, they have the idea of, I guess they can get scale a lot faster because they said basically they want it to be in every Sam's Club store by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Which will create even more, I think, more impetus for any kind of checkout free shopping technology.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good environment to start it in because, I don't know how many SKUs, a couple thousand SKUs, right? That a Sam's Club would have. So it's a smaller SKU base. The generally larger pack sizes. You can get a big order in your cart, a big high dollar order in your cart, that doesn't necessarily have 20 items. It's got, a smaller number of SKUs. And, you think of the technology of you scan in your app as you go, and then so your app knows what's in the basket, even almost no matter how you put them in the basket, it's going to add up to some kind of cube, right? And the products are going to have, the system knows the images of the products, right? 360 degrees, view. So to pass through, a computer vision scanner with AI that's noticing and computing what's going through relative to what's expected, it does make a lot of sense. Great place to start it. And ultimately, as you refine the technology, you kind of do a Moore's Law thing, and then, move on to, your standard store environment where you have a lot more SKUs and they're a lot more variable in their sizes and nature, but, the same technology can do that.
Yeah. It is fascinating. I mean, the degree to which they're just setting the bar. right? They're
Yeah.
basically saying I mean, they once again they talk about 90% of America lives within 10 miles of a Walmart. So they're basically saying if you want to compete in the retail space, and yet price is important, but it's not the only thing. These are the things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to eliminate friction at the front end. You're going to have to provide some focus on automatic replenishment. These are the steps you're going to have to take if you want to keep up with us, and they're not going to make it easy. And
No,
listen,
absolutely.
right? And it's not a new phrase, but I mean, but every once in a while, I still hear people talking about omni-channel. But when they talk about adaptive retail, that they're clearly saying omni-channel is silly, because you're even in saying that you're referring to different channels. Adaptive
Yeah,
retail is customer focused, and that's
no doubt.
critical.
Yeah, I think that's the best. I've heard, years ago we said, well, omni-channel is not a really, it's not a good word because it does make you think of channels, and at any point in time you're in one of the many channels. Then some were using like integrated retail, but that's not too techy. I like adaptive, right? The
Yeah,
tech, the format, the experiences, they adapt to serve the customer.
right.
And the customer can shop across those, however they want, whenever they want, and get a great experience across all of it. And yeah, and these things that Walmart is doing now, they're going to be table stakes in just a few years.
Right.
Because Walmart's going to be already moving on to what's next, and Amazon's going to be moving on to what's next. It's funny, even in through this, I learned a lot about my own world of innovation. When pretty spoiled being at Amazon, right? So at Amazon, we were able to, kind of lean into some kind of far out seeming things, and we had plenty of capital to do it, and patient, relatively patient culture, to get stuff right. And customers were able to kind of, you know, they relied on us to kind of show them the way. And then post Amazon, building these companies, I mean, Replenium is not new. I think the tech under Replenium and the industry adoption of Replenium, that's really picked up the last few years. The other capability that they highlighted in the keynote just before AutoReplen is this capability to shop with your friends,
Yeah.
right? You can shop with your friends, and I could say, "Hey, Kevin, what do you think? How do I look in this sweater? What do you think?" And then you could give me a heart and tell me you love it, or you could.
I like you a lot, but I don't really need to. We don't need to go down that road.
But it's funny. We in our CEP world, we incubated a company, that was in that space more than 10 years ago.
Right.
And we actually evolved it because, we found in there that it wasn't so much that people went to a retail site to shop together. They tended to want to shop together if they're in a social site.
Right.
So then we evolved that more to say, well, maybe I could rely on or work with, an associate of the retailer, to help me with that. And we had a bunch of retailers, but we ended up selling it to Nordstrom and became the style boards that the stylists use.
Right.
And so the keynote kind of made me realize is that, you can be bleeding edge. And that's, that's a dangerous place to be because it costs you a lot of capital to be on the bleeding edge. But being at that right level of tech capability and, customer readiness, that's one thing that I was really impressed, with kind of how Walmart is positioned there. And so I think that they have this, really nice, kind of ecosystem for now coming up with things at the right time to bring them to folks. And then, calling Satya Nadella on stage to say, "Oh, here's our tech partner. Here's Satya from Microsoft." You may have
Well,
heard of him. I mean, that's amazing.
the thing is, Walmart is one of very few retail companies that's got the resources to do this on its own.
Absolutely. Yes.
Everybody else, everybody else has to look for a partner.
Has to look for partners, needs an ecosystem. And yeah, and I think there's hope, I think, I think the industry has to start building some more rigor around the building and enablement of these ecosystems, or else the haves versus the have-nots, gap is going to separate even further.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a handful of retailers responsible for all the growth, all the innovation, and that's where they're going to get all the customers.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're at a vulnerable point now in the industry, but so much great tech out there now, so available and relatively inexpensive compared to the way tech used to be. Lots of great opportunity.
Well, we won't go into it now because we're out of time, but that's one of the things we'll be talking about at NGA, because we're going to be both doing the NGA technology track together in Las Vegas in early March. So we'll talk more about that as we go forward. Hey, listen, as always, fascinating. I want to remind everybody down below, I will put a link in so you can see the Walmart CES keynote. It's fascinating stuff, and we're all learning from it. Tom, as always, thanks so much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care.